But actually, now I'm here, I'm really busy, I'm executing about 7 shows at once, and then also dealing with new ideas, getting other stuff through, and then internal politics and all that kind of stuff. Just takes up loads of time. That sounds like I'm moaning, but it's but that's just Dave. And presumably, if you're at Channel 4 or BBC, and it must be the avalanche must be enormous. But every day I do get sent random stuff. Generally it's 2 comedians from the 90s in a camper van driving around Britain looking for unusual cheeses or something, or setting up a pub with somebody from the 90s, which, if you've got that idea, please don't bother. It's really not going to happen unless you've got advertiser funding. Then we'll look at it.
Hello and welcome to the Ask the Industry podcast, episode 40. For those of you new to the show, my name's Simon Caine, and this is the podcast where I interview the most influential people from the worlds of stand-up, writing, comedy, radio, and today, TV. Iain Coyle is the comedy commissioner for both Dave and UKTV. This is quite an in-depth interview, and it's one that I think will give a lot of value to anyone who wants to write for TV or who has an idea for TV and wants to try and get it commissioned. We talk about how to get your show commissioned. His email address is in here, so that's worth listening to at least. He explains what Dave is looking for, what Dave is not looking for, and his thoughts on just making stuff and getting it out there on your own networks and trying to not pitch it to TV channels straight away, but trying to find an audience for it on your own, and how if the idea is good enough and you find your own audience, they'll beat a path to your door and they'll come running for you. We talk about the value of social media for artists and the future of TV, with the internet increasingly taking up more and more of people's attention spans, including when they're watching TV and they're actually also on their phone. It was a really great interview. He's really self-aware and he really knows the TV industry so well. I think it'd be great for anyone who is interested in writing for TV, or who has an idea for something for TV, or maybe even someone who has sent something off to a comedy commissioner and wondered what happened after they hit send on the email. Before I hit play on the interview, I want to very quickly tell you about something that I've been working on for 2 years. It's a book, and it's called How to Make a Living by Working for Free. It is my second book, and it is out today. It's a how-to guide for artists and freelancers on how to build their own audience around their work using free content online. So if you're enjoying my free content and you want to support me, feel free to buy a copy. You can do it today via Indiegogo. There should be a link in the notes for this episode of the podcast, so if you look in your podcast player. But also there will be links on my website in the show notes for this specific episode. So if you go to simoncaine.co.uk/books/how to make a living by working for free, you can find all the details in the book there. If you go to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/how to make a living by working for free, that'll take you to the page where you can pre-order it on Indiegogo. If that doesn't work, it should work. I've tried it about 1 million times in the last 2 days to make sure it does work. Just go to Indiegogo and type in how to make a living by working for free. You'll find it there. It's £5 for a digital copy, £8 for a paperback copy. Can't really say fairer than that. Genuinely, it's taken me so long to write this and get it right and get it sorted. I'm ecstatic to have it out. If you're loving this podcast, you are evidence that the book works in helping to find me an audience for something that I wanted to do, which is a talk internet radio show for the comedy industry. The next step of the book is trying to find a way of actually making some sort of money back on the investment and time and effort that you put into it. The book explains how that works, how you can do it yourself. And so if you really like what I'm doing and you really love this content and you would like to help me out, please feel free to buy yourself a copy. Like I said, it's a £5. It costs you £5 to help me keep creating stuff, and you get a book out of it. Thank you very much for doing that. If you do, honestly can't express how much it will mean to me if I can sell enough copies of this that I actually can make back my original investment, at least on how much it cost to produce the book. Anyway, that's enough from me. Without any more delays, this is Iain Coyle.
There's another name for another show. I'm not ashamed of anything anymore.
The anymore is the key word.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man. You were saying a second ago about commissioners being reserved or not taking chances.
Risk adverse.
Yeah.
I think it's not just about not necessarily commissioners. I think it's channels are risk adverse. What was meant by that is that the proliferation of channels. You think, from when I first started working in telly just after the war, there were only 4 channels, and now there are hundreds.
So and
you'd imagine therefore that would give much more opportunity. But actually, it's the opposite the case, because everybody's just doing facsimiles of the same thing, and people are all chasing the same few viewers. So they know what their advertisers will pay for that type of program. So it just stifles creativity, which is the opposite of what should happen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, my day job's I write jokes for Twitter.
Yeah.
And I know how low adverts pay in terms of, especially online, cost per click and stuff. But it turns out, I mean, that tends to be the thing that most people go for because they think it's the most consistent way of making money.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I don't feel like it is. I mean, this podcast, I have patrons for it that kind of sponsor it, and it feels like channels maybe should adopt a different method for what they're doing in terms of TV, or do you think
sort of crowdfunding comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll suggest that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm somewhat hamstrung by the nature of what I'm doing. I mean, I try to fight the good fight from inside and try and push people to take chances and take risks and stuff. But I mean, by the nature of the channels I work for, mostly work for Dave, and it's a changing place, and we're getting a bigger foothold in the industry. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for that, mostly because everybody else is shut almost. BBC 3's shut, Channel 4 don't seem to have any confidence in comedy anymore. So Channel 4 was always the place that we would break new talent when I was a kid. That doesn't exist anymore, so you're left sort of with E4 and God forbid ITV2. The words ITV and comedy, the two things should never be said in the same sentence. So as a consequence, we're now becoming a bit of a player, and we're dealing with some really top talent and stuff. But that at the same time, what's frustrating is that we're not really yet in a position where we can break new talent, which I would love to be able to work with more time. I mean, as I talked to you earlier on about. I look after the Alan Davis Azure Untitled show, which is basically just some comedians sat down talking. In fact, the pilot was called "Some Comedians Talking," and
nailed it. Yeah. And
I always try and ensure that there's a space there for somebody who is supposedly new talent. Although they've probably been doing it for 15 years, absolutely incredibly successsul. But I mean, because I think it's really important that the gene pool is widened a bit, because actually there's less and less people being used, and it's really, really hard. I mean, I was talking to a couple of agents who made it exactly the same point to me only yesterday, and they're big agents, and Avalon and Hannah Chambers, and people are just basically saying it's really hard now to break people on telly, because there's just nowhere to go, So there we are. Well, I hate telly.
Well, you're in the right industry.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is okay. So I mean, a lot of comedians, especially at my level, maybe because I'm 5 years in, so maybe 5 to 10 years in, talk about how. I mean, because it'd be interesting to know from your perspective. Do you get stuff from production companies, or do you produce a lot of stuff in house? Because there are production companies that are owned by people like Avalon.
Yeah.
So they put their own acts on.
Yeah.
And so that's why you get a lot of the same faces over and over again. And also a lot of audiences want to see, because they like the familiarity. They like to see the same people. But like you said, it would be great if there was a space for someone who's new, or someone that hasn't had that chance yet, who is good.
It's really difficult, because I mean, by the very nature of it and the way the system works at the moment and the way broadcasting works, it generally will be. It is just tends to be from the same 3 or 4 agents where new people are coming through, and I think a lot of people are very down on those agents, and I just think, well, it's working. You can't diss them. They're the ones who are actually making things work. And also they are bringing through some really good, really interesting talent. But I mean, I think I don't really know what the answer is, other than the fact that somebody, a channel, puts some money and some confidence behind stuff and takes a chance, which isn't just driven by bums on seats. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're working for an advertising funded channel, then it's all about bums on seats, and it's depressingly so. I didn't realise until I started working in commissioning and working for a channel how just how depressingly important that is. And we have to do so. Every time we're going to do a TV show, we have to do something called an ROI form, which is a return on investment form, which you basically have to predict how many people are going to watch it, how much money you're going to make from advertising revenues, and basically a bottom line of how much money it's going to either make or lose. I mean, generally it's good if it's a positive ROI, but they try and put a value on the PR and the good that it does for the channel
as well,
reputationally. Yeah, but so actually that system in itself is kind of inbuilt to stop you taking risks. But I'm still trying, I'm still pushing, but trying
with us.
Absolutely, because I don't, I think it's like everybody else. I want to make fun, new, interesting stuff. And what's ironic about that ROI form is that you have to offer a show that's similar or in the same territory, so they can predict how many people might watch it. And you go, well, there is nothing like this because it's new. It's a new show. It's innovative and brilliant. Yeah. So just put one of those show that gets lots of people viewing it. As that'll be the example.
Well, the interesting part for me is I can't remember what it was, but I saw a quote a while ago that said, if you win an award for something, it's because they've compared you to things they've seen before and said you're just as good as that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sort of makes me feel good because I've never won an award, so I must be doing something
exactly
non-commercially viable.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is that people they just don't understand it. That's the thing. I think they're not good enough to understand. That's the thing.
I wish my ego was big enough to say that. But it's interesting because I said to you before, the thing that annoys me about comedy, stand-up, live stand-up, is I spend most of my time driving, which is not what I want to do. I want to spend most of my time on stage. Yeah. And I imagine for people who have like scripts or radio ideas or whatever, they spend most of the time getting rejected by production houses and by, in the nicest way, probably commissioning editors like yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the weird thing about being a commissioning editor is you don't actually really get to commission anything, because really you're it's a terrible cliche, but you're a gatekeeper. So you basically, I've got lots of friends in comedy and lots of friends in telly, and so they'll come to me with ideas, and then I have to then sell it internally to some other people who haven't necessarily got lots of experience in comedy, lots of entertainment TV friends. So it's having been freelance for about 23 years before I a producer and writer and stuff, before I became a commissioner, it's quite similar. It's just different people saying no. And it can be just as frustrating. It really is. But I think I made the switch. So I've been a commissioner now for about 2.5 years, and I made that switch partly through desire for stability, but also I thought it might be a better way to get things done. Really, I mean, because it just it's frustrating, as you know, being a freelance person and not getting frustrated by idiots. So I decided to become one of the idiots. So I'm sure people, because I always say, and all the commissioners say, oh yeah, it's fine, I'm not like the others, I'm different. But at the end of the day, you turn into a right fucking idiot, and I try not to bring out the old cliched replies to people. But I do. You find yourself saying the word noisy all the time, and you think, oh God, I'd listen to myself sound like a fucking TV wanker. But that's essentially because I am a TV wanker now. So there we are.
What's that quote? You always become the thing you hate.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Alcoholic. TV commissioner,
Well, okay. The internet has obviously made it easier for people to make stuff and put it online, and just go and find their audience. And for me, I mean, I don't know what I'd be doing without the internet, really. Like, I don't know how I would stay in touch with people that like what I do. I don't know how I would be trying to, reach out to find new people that might like what I do. But I mean, do you think? So, for example, you've got like an on-demand service on Dave online. I mean, do you think maybe even Plus One channels and things like that are becoming outdated now because of the internet making it?
I think I went through a period of worrying about telly and worrying about whether anybody will need telly in 10 years' time. But as someone who's been involved in making content, all my career, I just look at it. I think, well, people will always need content, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's good, it will find an audience. And I think people's ability to make stuff online and to create their own material is fantastic. It gets rid of that frustration of having to go through a TV wanker. You can make it yourself, and actually now that's the best way to pitch as well, because I can then, because rather than, when I was pitching, I would write a 2-page outline of an idea and then go in and try and sell it off the back of that. Very little stuff now gets done off the back of that, unless it's got Dara O'Brien's name attached to it. Very little stuff gets done on it, because you can show the head of your channel the shiny beads of moving footage and go, look, that's amusing. Look, enjoy that. Do you see yourself, that laugh noise you made there? We could do that in a longer form with some more money behind it. So, I think it's absolutely the best way. And it's also because technology now is so much easier, and everybody can sort of edit a bit with hooves, can't they? Christ, I've commissioned some shows that's been edited by hooves in the last 2 years. But it's the opportunities now to be able to go out there and make your own stuff and cut out the frustration of it's great. And actually, if your stuff's doing well and people are coming to it, eventually some TV wanker will come and knock on your door. It's bound to. Yeah. Unless it's shit. I don't know.
Well, no, I think the thing is, whenever I talk to I've got a lot of friends who have got a lot of TV ideas, and most of it is a sitcom about their life. And most of the time when they say it, they're like, I really want to get it on TV. I just need to get it past the commissioner. It'll be absolutely fine. And you're like, well, then you got to get it past, like you said, the ad people. Yeah. But the thing is that, for me, I keep saying, make a pilot, put it online, and if it's great, they'll beat a path to your door.
Absolutely.
Or at least one of them will. Because if it's not for Dave, for example, like you said, you've got a tone of voice that maybe doesn't lend itself to every programme. Yeah. But, I mean, I only know that because my day job I have to keep changing for tone of voice for writing. Yeah. But I suppose not everyone has that frame of reference.
No, and I think also people are just... they think they're right, and
it's a comedian trope.
No, absolutely. They think they're right, and they think, well, why should I change what I'm doing? People should come to me because it's fucking brilliant, and often it's not. That's the thing. Yeah. I think also there is a perception within channels about what their tone of voice is, which isn't necessarily what their tone of voice is, and you constantly, people within telly and within comedy sometimes just need a bit of perspective. I'm just trying to think of an example. I was so the other channel I commission for is Gold, which do all the kind of sitcom. People watch Only Fools and Horses every day of their lives on there for some reason, and it's there's some fantastic stuff on Gold. It's really, really good, but people refer to it as Gold TV, and the channel fucking hate it. But
really?
You just go, because the brand, they spent all this money on branding it Gold, and then people are still referring to it as Gold TV, and it drives them mental. And you just go, what does it matter? It doesn't matter. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. It's like when Channel 5 called themselves 5, and then everybody just continued to call it Channel 5, and eventually they changed it back to call it Channel 5. It's just branding just don't get me started on marketing people. It drives me fucking mad.
It's like Santander bought the sponsorship for Boris bikes, and everyone calls them Boris bikes. Yeah. No one's ever going to call them Santander bikes.
To be fair, they should be. It was organised before Boris, so it shouldn't. Boris had nothing to do with it. As usual, it's claimed it's. It just should be Red Ken bikes. That's what they should. That's what it should.
It's not quite
doesn't really go well. Doesn't really go well with Santander, does it?
No, not at all.
No,
that's a whole.
It's Ken Livingstone. Ken Livingstone bikes. That's it. Every time I see a bike and people refer to it as Boris bike, it hurts me because that means I think about Boris.
Yeah. Well, this is bang on exactly what I'm doing. So, okay, I'll explain. This is slightly off topic. At the time this will be going out, I'm doing a crowdfunding thing for my book, my second book, because I got offered a publishing deal, and I turned them down because they offered me a very shit, they offered me no advance, a very shit deal, and I've done another deal with The Guardian for my first book, and I remember saying to them, I'm going to go do it myself, I'm going to do a Kickstarter, and then I'll come back to you when I've shown you that it sells a certain number of books. And they said, sure, if you can sell this number, we'll talk. And I was like, cool. And it just blew my mind. I was like, they literally will, if you have something good enough, change everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It feels like it's the same with TV from what you're saying, where if I could show you, this video's got 1 million hits in a week, why would you not talk to me about putting it into a
that's how people. That's the opportunity now that people can make their own shit. It's fantastic, but actually it doesn't necessarily. And so people don't necessarily need telly. People are obsessed with getting stuff on telly. You don't necessarily need telly, and how brilliant that thing is, it's still got to fit with the tone of voice that whichever channel is doing it, the channel you're trying to get it on. So you can make a fantastically edgy sketch show, but no one's going to put it on ITV1. It's just not going to happen. Or they will, and they'll fucking ruin it before it goes out by committee. That's what will happen.
Yeah, they'll have a little meeting and say, well, let's take those jokes out and just leave it as a bland narrative. Yeah,
there's a comedian I've worked with recently who did I better not give it away, but he did an ITV comedy thing, and again, it was he's a really great mate of mine. No, he's not. He's really not.
Just want to make that clear.
No, he's absolutely not. But I know the guy who produced it. Oh,
really?
Oh, he kept strangely quiet about it.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
What a surprise.
I thought when you were talking about your book, I thought you were going to, and Boris, I thought you were going to talk about the fact he wrote a book about Winston Churchill, and I just found that just the most extraordinarily arrogant thing to do. Whereas he's supposed to be fucking running London, and then he spent all his time writing this book. You should be fucking doing your work, just having meetings with people who make London better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I think Obama recently didn't he bring out an autobiography or something? And I was like, wait till you're done.
Yeah, well,
you've got a year left.
Shouldn't you be sort of sorting gun crime out or something?
Yeah, we're not gonna forget you the minute you leave. You've done a lot of good. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're the one clearing up the crap from the last one.
But of course, Boris. By the time this goes out, Boris will probably be Prime Minister, and that will be anyway.
And I'll be living in France.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question that got asked the most when I said I'm getting you on is, what is the process going from I have an idea to getting it on TV? Now, obviously, it's not a linear thing like that, but if you have like a rough, how would you even get it in front of you, for example? Would you, if someone
just
emailed
send it
you?
me. Just send it me. It's not,
Are you okay to give your email address out on I don't want to do it in case you don't want to.
Iain.Coyle@UKTV.co.uk. Well, that's fine. Fundamentally, what people have to remember are the stuff I'd like to commission, and then there's things that I am allowed to commission.
Right.
So the whole landscape would look very differently if I had my own, carte blanche to do anything. No one would watch it, but I'll be honest with you. But I'd enjoy it. But basically, that it's all about risk aversion in television, and that's depressing, but it's true. So if you've got an idea and it's a brilliant idea, and you can attach a big name to it, then that will really help. If you can get into bed with a production company that people trust, which again will mitigate people's fears, then that will help. But fundamentally, if it's a really brilliant idea and it's really funny, I can help with all those things and try and push stuff through. So, it's all I think when I work on stuff, I need to trust that the person I'm working with has got funny bones, because I've made a couple of shows since I've been there. I'll mention no names, with producers I didn't really know, and they've been shit because they actually didn't understand comedy. They didn't understand what they were doing, and the first rule of being a producer is to lie through your teeth. You know what you're doing. So with regard to a timeline or anything like that, there isn't one really, and there isn't. We don't have specific slots. We don't have specific amounts of money to pay for stuff. It's a really amorphous thing. I don't really know how much money we have in the pot ever, and I don't. Some, like 1 week they'll come to me and say, "Oh right, that's it. We're pretty much spent up for the year on Dave, that's it, there's no slots available." And they'll come in the next day and go, "Fuck, we've got £2 million just arrived, and we need to spend it. If we don't spend it before September, we won't get it again next year." And I went, "Where the fuck did that come from? Yeah. Who are these people who just released the Purge script? Where did they find that?" I don't really know who's in charge of the money, to be honest with you. No one quite knows, but but it's some complicated, because so UKTV is owned half by BBC Worldwide and half by this American company called Scripps, who've got the Food Network in the States and stuff. So it's a kind of weird board Illuminati of Americans and the BBC, which is again quite odd, because we're a sort of rival to BBC Worldwide, but at the same time they half own us, which is kind of very strange relationship. But it seems it's fucking working. They're doing. We've doubled our commission in slate in 2 years, so something's going well, and I think it's partly to do what we're doing and is good, and I'm brilliant, but also the landscape's changing, as I said before. BBC Three's disappearing, Channel 4 less confidence in comedy. So there's less places to go, and it gives us more opportunities, when we'll be doing stuff with Alan Davis, and you're doing stuff with Dara, and we're getting, and Dave Gorman, and all those names, and the Kakanori show that we do, and the Iain Davis show that we do, the names we can get on that, it's just extraordinary. The chances of being able to do that 5 years ago, it was zero. So we're still a long way to go, but it feels quite an exciting place to be. Yeah. All our ratings are going up, while all the other channels' ratings are going down. We're the only people whose ratings are going up. That's quite extraordinary, I think. Yeah. And we had a big briefing today. We're at the TV festival, and we had a big briefing today at the TV festival, and there was a talk by some of the heads of UKTV, and they didn't make that point strongly enough. We're the only people who do actually, growing, which is fantastic. So I don't know, what was the question? Oh yeah, timeline. So yes, so somebody can send it to me. I will, if I like it, I'll champion it, and I'll talk to my direct boss, who's the head of commissioning for it generally. Then I will talk to Steve North, who's the head of Dave and Gold and Watch now as well, and we'll try and agree, and then you get into budgets, then you get into schedules, all that kind of stuff. That sounds very easy. No, it's not. It's really not.
That's like 6 months of talking.
Sometimes more. Sometimes undercover. That they just did a scripted sitcom thing. That basically it's been 3 years. So that, and it's gone through. It went through about 5 different commissioners in its time, but they persevered. They kept going, and Andy Milligan and Baby Cow, they kept on pushing, and it got done. Yeah,
it's Baby Cow though. It's
well, exactly. Yeah, but but sometimes somebody can come to me with an idea, and I can partner them up with people. If I really like stuff, because no one, the best will in the world, no one's going to turn around and give you a prime time sitcom. They're just not. No. Well, they might give you a prime time sitcom, but they're not going to give you, because you haven't got a production company, you haven't got any experience of it's not just experience, it's just, again, it's risk aversion. If it's got Hat-Trick written on it, or Baby Cow written on it, or Talkback written on it, or something, even though Talkback isn't Talkback anymore, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's got no... Yeah. That's the weird thing. Sometimes the production companies just completely check, like Tiger isn't Tiger anymore, but it's still got a fantastic name, and people just feel a little bit more relaxed. I know it's actually quite depressing, but it's true. Yeah. It's just... So if someone has a great idea, and they don't necessarily have the background or the support, I can partner them with somebody else. That's fine. It's easy done. So that was quite hopeful. That really. Yeah. Much more. Please don't get any ideas.
No, that makes me feel really good actually. This is going to sound really odd, but I approached a different channel for you just because I thought it would work better there. Yeah. And I emailed them the idea, but I emailed them a second page with just statistics of other stuff I've done, and views and downloads and all that kind of stuff. And they said they loved the second page way more than the first page. Like they loved the idea, but they were like, no one ever sends us, like, because no one else is putting stuff online and no one else is trying to. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, there was probably too many words on the first email. That's the thing.
It was half a page. It was like 2 paragraphs.
That's a quarter of a page too much, probably.
You just want one line.
No, I'm fine. I'll sit and read scripts and stuff. But again, I then have to refer it to people who don't and won't. I mean, that's slightly unfair, but I think we're quite good at that sort of thing. But I certainly, having pitched and worked for production companies and with other channels, I know that to be the case. People don't get past the first fucking page, and so there's no point, making some elaborate 15-page document because people won't get past the first page, and that's depressing but true. But then, every day you get an avalanche of stuff. That's the other thing is, I remember when I was pitching to Dave. And
so you weren't working though. This was when you were
when I was a freelance,
okay.
I pitched to Dave, and I learnt so much even in the first week of coming in and being a commissioner as to what the fuck I was doing wrong. I was pitching the stuff that they didn't want. I was pitching them panel shows with new talent. A, they don't want panel shows, and B, they don't want new talent. But they were great shows. I've still got the formats if anybody's interested. So what was I saying? I can't remember now. So having been into other and pitching stuff to other broadcasters, it's people just don't. They don't have a they don't have a mental capacity to get past the first page. But you do. So what I was going to say was that when I went in and pitched something, and they didn't get back to me from Dave within like a week, I was like fucking furious. What are they doing? How long does it take to say, I want to let's put another 15 episodes of Top Gear on, and should we have 15 episodes of QI, or should we have another Have I Got News For You instead? Fucking lazy. But actually, now I'm here, I'm really busy. I'm executing about 7 shows at once, and then also dealing with new ideas, getting other stuff through, and then internal politics and all that kind of stuff just takes up loads of time. That sounds like I'm moaning, but it's but that's just Dave. And presumably, if you're at Channel 4 or BBC, and it must be the avalanche must be enormous. But every day I do get sent random stuff. Generally it's 2 comedians from the 90s in a camper van driving around Britain looking for unusual cheeses or something, or setting up a pub with somebody from the 90s, which if you've got that idea, please don't bother. It's really not going to happen unless you've got advertiser funding. Then we'll look at it.
Unless you've got Richard Herring and Stuart Lee.
If we don't have to pay for it. Maybe. I don't think Stuart would do it.
No, he doesn't. I don't think his audience would be on Dave. I don't think he wants to attract the audience that Dave might do.
Absolutely.
It's because I totally understand what you're going on about. I think some people listening might not, because like I said, freelance writer, I write for the internet a lot, and the internal politics of, so they'll email me and say, hey, we need 100 jokes around tea because you're going to do it for PG tips, or you're going to do it for Tetley or whatever, and then I'll write 100 of them, and then they'll send me back an email and they'll say 20 of them were good, 10 of them would just be offensive, 10 of them are legally compromising or whatever, and it's going back and forth, and you'll spend a day writing and you'll end up with 3 jokes that they'll be able to use, and people will look at it and go, you just wrote 3 jokes in a day. I'm like, I really didn't. I sat down and I had to write 100 tea puns, and nobody liked any of them internally, and that's why it looks like I'm doing nothing.
A tone of voice is that's the thing. If you need to, if you're going to pitch to any channel, you need to understand what the tone of voice of the channel is, and even if it's not your tone of voice, it's a creative challenge. That's what it is. It gives you some different parameters than you normally deal with, and that you really need to know the audience, because actually you can send me stuff and it's a complete waste of time. It's a non-starter because it's not the right tone of voice.
Do you have a tone of voice on your website that people can look at? It's fairly obvious what it is.
No, not really. Well, it is fairly. I think people also have the perception, who don't really watch it that much, that it's like laddie Top Gear, and I think probably it was for once, but I suppose the answer to that question, really, even though you didn't ask me a question, is that audience is safe. We've got those people. Actually, we want to bring other people in, so it's a cleverer audience. Where if you look at the majority of the stuff that I make and the stuff that we commission on Dave, it's generally quite bright stuff. It's quite clever stuff, and because all the stupid Dave viewers, they're all taken care of. They're fine. They can watch Lizard Lick Towing and Top Gear. That's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's good. They both get massively loyal audiences, but I think Taskmaster and Dave Gorman and the Alan Davis Show and Ross Noble, Free Willy and stuff. They're quite clever ideas, and they're quite bizarrely highbrow. When you talk about Dave, you don't think about highbrow, but it is quite highbrow. It's quite clever stuff. So it's I guess it's sort of the stuff BBC Two used to do, or even Channel 4 when Channel 4 was Channel 4. I think. But again, you fundamentally need to understand what your audience is. So I commissioned for Dave, and I commissioned for Gold, and supposedly commissioned for Watch, but it's not really my area. But so Gold again is a very peculiar audience of comedy geeks and Daily Express readers. It is they will watch Only Fools and Horses every single day. And God knows if ever somebody got in U-Tree from Only Fools and Horses and we wouldn't be able to broadcast that, then that channel would be fucked. But now we're making original stuff for that channel as well, and that's interesting because the new stuff we make for that channel has to almost feel that it is classic already. That's really hard, really hard. I mean, I'm not looking after the scripted stuff for Gold, but I've done a lot of archives type shows for them, and which are great fun to do as well, because I'm a comedy geek. I enjoy comedy. I love it. So it's incredibly rewarding for me to make shows I actually want to watch. It's really good fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of what you just said is partly the reason why I gave up trying to get my thing on a channel. Yeah. Because I thought, as much as I could adjust it for your tone of voice, I want to do what I have an idea for. And it's the whole comedian, I'm right, you're wrong. But the point is that when I go on stage, I do the thing I want to do. Yeah. And it's the same thing carrying through from that ideal, if that makes sense. Yes, you've got a bigger audience that it could go out to, but how many of them are going to like it, and how many of them, you know what I mean?
And that's it. It's but that's where we are at the moment. Yeah. We've changed massively in the 2.5 years I've been here. Dave has transformed itself extraordinarily, and actually in 2 years' time, God knows what will happen. Everybody's talking about we should, do a Saturday Night Live, or to do a daily show. Everybody wants to do one of those, and all comedians think we should have those shows on. I mean, it's slightly more problematic with Dave, because they like to repeat and rinse stuff out over because of the advertising revenues. We don't get as much advertising revenue as Channel 4 and BBC and BBC as ITV. We need stuff that's topicality is quite problematic, even though they'll play a 7-year-old Have I Got News For You, which is topical. I just don't really understand that. I don't understand that. But I think in the next sort of 5 years or so, if I'm still here, we'll be able to take more chances with newer people and younger people and new talent. I think we're growing confidently, and they have to take some big risks. The David Hasselhoff thing was a massive risk and mental. I mean, it was an extraordinarily peculiar show. I think the ratings for the first series were a bit disappointing, but they're still going to do a second series, because they believe in it and they think it's about more than ratings, which I think is quite confident. That would never happen on ITV. Yeah.
So I mean, if we take, so you're talking about Undercover, the programme before that took a few years to get through. Yeah. And now I assume, is it second series?
I don't know yet, but I think they're in negotiations about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if let's take so I've got a list of other shows you've started. So if we took You, Me and Them, that one. Okay. So that going forward?
I don't know. It's not my show.
No, okay.
But they've done 2 series.
I'm just trying to work out what risk assessment you went through for a show that's going forward.
Right.
So if you want to pick one that you know that is.
Sitcoms are quite different, because sitcoms there's almost no point doing one series of sitcom, because sitcoms.
The first series is always the worst.
But it's also it takes a while to build an audience and get a tone of voice. So if they're going to do a sitcom, they will largely try and commit, or at least notionally think that they're going to go for 2 or 3 series, and I think that's the industry appreciate that, and I think it's a sensible strategy. So for example, the Dave Gorman stuff. So that's now we've commissioned another 2 series of that. So we'll have 5 series eventually. So we basically built a brand there, which does really well. I mean, that's getting 650. Is it 6 650,000 viewers,
Right.
700,000 views when it first goes out, which is extraordinary, I think, for Dave.
So which show is that?
Dave Gorman, Modern Life is Goodish.
Yeah, that one. Okay,
So
right.
that basically, by the very nature of those figures, that will happen again. But there's some stuff that is borderline, and I've got to fight for it to get a second series, because that's to do with ratings. It's to do with return on investment and stuff, and whether we think stuff has been given a decent opportunity, whether it's been scheduled properly. Sometimes stuff gets scheduled in completely wrong places, so and it fucks it, So for example, Ross Noble, the first series of Ross Noble Freewheeling, which is a fantastic show. I absolutely loved it, and again, an incredibly bold thing to do. I mean, Ross made the show up as he went along, so it's basically taking his stage show, which is improv, and just doing it out on the street. And incredibly risky, because we just won't, you basically just wave him off and then hope that what comes back good. And it was amazing. But so that the first 2 eps of that first series did really well, and then the third one, which annoyingly was the best ep, I think, fell off a cliff. And you think, oh fuck, what happened there? And it's just because BBC Two had a new sitcom on at the same time, and that's it. You don't get a second chance there.
Yeah.
That's really annoying. And the sitcom, I can't remember the name, which didn't get a second series, had Vic Reeves in it, and Bob Mortimer was in the 3rd episode of Ross Noble. So actually, Vic stole viewers from Bob, which is really annoying. But
Put him in next series.
So scheduling can really ruin stuff, or it can make it. You put something new off the back of something which is a real banker, and it's got a similar tone of voice, then it will do well. I've just done a show with Jason Manford called Money Pit, which it's sort of trying to appeal to that Storage Hunters audience, which is a peculiar audience for Dave. I don't really know how and where those people come from. No one really expected that to be such a massive hit, but it was such a massive hit that they stopped making it in America, and we've started making it over here now. So we're trying to make a show that still appeals to that sort of thing, but try and bring in some more comedy and more of a Dave sensibility to it. So where that schedules, I don't quite know, but we'll probably play it off the back of a Storage Hunters. A brand new Storage Hunters, so that will hopefully then push those viewers over to that. Fingers crossed. But that's a very odd show to make, and peculiar. No, because you're sort of making it up as you go along, because you don't quite know what the tone of voice of the show is. That's always the problem. You never know until you're there, and then actually when you get to the last day of filming, you go, "Fucking, we're really on this now. We know what we're doing." But then it's finished.
Yeah.
So,
I know what you mean about scheduling. My Edinburgh show
Yeah.
is scheduled very conveniently for me to exit flyer about 9 different shows in the vicinity,
Right.
because they all
Perfect.
end at around sort
Yeah.
of half an hour before my show.
Yeah.
And I basically got out the schedule, looked at, and mapped out. I'm a real nerd.
Yeah.
I basically mapped out where every show was
Yeah.
around me, and then looked at the times before them.
Yeah.
And now I make my way around and exit flyer every single show,
Yeah.
and that gets in most of my audience. That's
Wow.
sort of half the room. But if that hadn't have happened,
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd get that other half of that
Yeah.
room from.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. Fair play to you if you're getting noticed at all. And there's so much stuff on here, and it's all fucking 8 o'clock. It drives me mental. And I usually come up like a week before. So I did the TV festival this year. Did it first time last year, despite the fact I worked in telly for 20 odd years. I just didn't want to be surrounded by people in telly, but. So last year I came up for 5 days before and did the comedy festival, and then did the TV festival. But unfortunately I went away with my kids this year, so I've not managed to do it. So I've hardly seen anything. So, and I feel I keep meeting comics in the street that I know and go, oh yeah, I really wish I could, but I'm going home on Saturday. I'm really sorry, But there's always next year. They'll be
back.
They'll be doing the similar thing, and probably the same jokes with a terrible title, change of title, which they, people have to come up with the titles before they write their shows. And it's just like incomprehensible. Some of the titles.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call one Big Cheese Sandwich.
Yeah, nice, good.
Yeah,
I
think that'll attract your attention.
It's a catchy. It sounds like a thing that'll repeat on you over and over again.
Like on Dave.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you said, Dave has this. Dave, when it started, I looked this up. It said that when they started, they called it Dave because everyone knows someone called Dave.
Yeah.
And it was very much a laddie perception. And I think you picked up Top Gear was like one of your first shows, and it was sort of that perceived audience. But I mean, what is your audience now? Like, I mean, obviously you said you've got that core audience.
It's about, I think, that it's strangely people think it's completely male, but I think it's something like 55% male, 45% female, which I think surprises quite a lot of people. But I think there are somebody told me, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this, but there is almost two very distinct audiences. One that watches the storage hunters, lizard lick towing, American pickers, that type of audience, more early evening, and Top Gear to a certain extent, and then the people who watch QI, Alan Davis, Ross Noble, and all that. So there's almost and never the twain mix, which is kind of weird. People watch that sort of stuff and they don't watch the other sort of stuff. So I don't know. I think in my head, which is not really official, for me, he's about a 35-year-old bloke who's quite bright and enjoys comedy. That's why I try. But isn't. I don't know. I sort of, there's a bloke at work. I always think of it. It's him.
Right.
And I don't know that, and that's sort of by osmosis, really. I sort of know where that audience is. It's weird. But I think. But yeah, I do find a lot of time fighting against people just saying, "Oh yeah, it's fucking Top Gear." Oh. We don't play that much Top Gear anymore,
Is that because of the scandal? Have you dropped it?
No, weirdly, no. That was great for us.
1 minute, sorry.
No,
the wind. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's the ghost of Clarkson.
Top Gear.
No, it was weird because when this BBC, announced that they were canning it, they did a really funny picture on. And put it out on their Twitter feed of the whole of the Dave office, and it looks like people were throwing themselves off bridges, and other people were hanging themselves because the perception is that Dave just plays that all the time. But no, we keep on playing it. But there's and we're the only place that shows it now, I guess. No, I think the BBC have been showing repeats of it, haven't they? Which seems odd to me. I don't really understand that if you're not prepared to make new ones, why are you still showing the old ones? Anyway.
Yeah, I think. What do you think? Because they've just moved to Amazon as well. Like they've signed a deal. Because that's obviously not really a TV show. It's not a TV channel at all. It's basically them going online. And do you think that's
Amazon and Netflix. I think Netflix especially. Frankie Boyle's doing a whole load of specials for Netflix. I think it's going to be an interesting shake-up when that stuff happens, because people aren't watching telly the same way they used to. People are selecting stuff and they go and watch it when they want to. So it's again a changing landscape, and I think Netflix and Amazon are becoming a much bigger player. I mean, as regards to Top Gear folk, I don't. The reason why they're doing that is because that's where nobody else will touch them, and that's where they can get the most money, presumably. I don't think we would have been able to afford to make new stuff with them. So, I think they're going to have to do it. I don't know. I mean, perhaps you shouldn't go around saying racist things and punching people in the face. I don't know. For me. For me, that would be the question I'll be asking myself. But
that's not the Dave tone of voice.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. No.
It's the ITV2.
Yeah. Oh,
we've gone too far with that. Well,
it's fine. It would have been an ITV. If it had been an ITV2, nobody would have seen it, so it would have been fine.
We've got the claws out.
Yeah. Well, they're interesting on ITV2 because they've taken off all the stuff that people used to watch on ITV2 and now put it on ITVB.
Right.
And now they're trying to move into comedy. So they are becoming a bit of a rival, to be honest, but their schedule's just still all over the place. I think at the moment they don't quite know what they are. They don't really know what their tone of voice is, and I think it's really important. Going back to when Dave first started, it used to be called, I think it was called UKTV Play 2 or UKTV Gold 2. Also, it was called some ridiculous name that didn't mean anything, and then overnight they turned it to Dave, and then everybody knew what it stood for very quickly. It was a brilliant piece of marketing. But also that one brilliant piece of marketing has almost hamstrung everything else of the company ever since. And now marketing is so much more important than everything else, which is a bit of a personal pain in the arse. But you know, it just shows you how a brilliant bit of marketing can change. You know, the fortunes of a show. It can change the fortune of a channel. It's extraordinary how that worked, and no one really knows why it works that well.
Well, I mean, I've got ideas behind that based around what I do for a day job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so if you look at the history of brands, they've never really needed to be your friend, if that makes sense. They've just put an advert on TV that fuels, you know, people buying the product. That then fuels people, you know, their profit margins, and then they put more adverts out and then sells more product. And it just goes around that loop. Now, people buy from people. And brands that have mascots do pretty well on social media and online, because you feel like you're building a bond and a relationship with them. Whereas brands that don't have that, or don't have a voice, or don't have a thing that you can go, I like Dave because of this. They don't do so well. And it's why newer brands like, say, Innocent Smoothie, for example, who have like that really strong tone of voice, which is like fun and exciting and whatever. People can go, either I love that or I hate that. It's why I did I don't know if I can. I did Marmite's Twitter feed a while ago, and that was one of my favourite ones I ever did, because it was already inbuilt into the branding that you either hated it or loved it. And people tweeted me every day going, "Oh, I hate you. You taste disgusting." And I go, "Well, we don't need you anyway." And I was allowed to do that because they are. That's what they do all the time.
I think there's a lot to be said for having a strong. So I used to do all the stuff with. Russell Brand. I used to do Big Mouth. That used to be. I used to produce exec and dress up as a whale and a horse for that show.
He
no, we had these kind of stupid characters which I took it on myself to be, and he was really interesting because when we first started that show, people fucking hated him, really hated him, because he's like a cartoon character, and. But I didn't worry about that. I thought that was a good thing because people knew about him and noticed him. And then one day he came in and said, Coyle, from today I'm having my hair like this. I'm mostly wearing black. Okay, right, fine. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. And that made him even more like cartoonish. And again, he was just really brilliant at building his brand, ironically. And then, of course, there was the shagging, which the tabloids love, and they didn't quite know what to do with him because they were trying to catch him out. Oh, he's been out shagging again, and he goes, "Yeah, I was shagging. It's brilliant. Really enjoyed the shagging. It's brilliant." And that, it's manna from heaven for a tabloid. That. So he was a really interesting story but that was a brilliant bit of own personal branding. I think it's. You can't underestimate it. I mean, they're really good at UKTV with that. Dave, they've got a Twitter feed. They've got on-screen personality where they tell jokes. They've got a Facebook thing. They've got people who run that and who are comics and write some really good jokes on there. So they understand the importance of that, and they, as much as I moan about it, they're brilliant at their marketing. The thing is, we don't do that many shows, but when we do shows, people notice it, and that's how good our marketing is. It shouts much louder than Sky. Sky spend a fortune on their advertising, absolute fortune, billboards everywhere. But actually, sometimes you don't even know Sky shows are on. I don't know why, but our marketing just seems to be better and better targeted. So. Fair play. No, God, that's me talking at marketing department.
Like I was saying, I mean, it's as a performer, as I'm building my own audience, I sort of feel like the people, as I develop a relationship with my audience, I feel like I have more creative flexibility and freedom because they trust me and they find me funny. And I think that's, like I was saying in the episode before this, it went out today. It's not the episode before this one, but the one with Oliver Double, where he said the secret of being funny is getting them to trust you. And the reason why, and I said to him, I think the reason why it works on TV when you have like a stand-up that comes out on the Apollo or whatever, is because there's that social proof of everyone most of the people in the room know who that person is, and if they don't, they're on TV, they must be funny. And so as a result, there is some stuff that goes on there that is not that funny, or not as funny and creative as it could be.
I think when comics get to a certain status and they go and tour, and people go and pay money to go and see them, often that's when they take their eye off the ball, because everybody, they can turn up and just say anything, and when they're not doing open spots, when they're not doing stuff that they can be compared to rival other comedians on the same bill, then I think you sort of get a little bit. I think people get a little bit scared of coming back and doing it, but I think that's why the best ones still go and do warm-ups and do a night at guest nights at various places. I go. I live in Balham in South London. The Banana is just fantastic. It's fantastic, and people will come on there. You think, fucking hell, how I wouldn't be able to book you for a show, a TV show, but they'll get on there. So, and it's because I guess they enjoy doing it. I suppose. I don't know. Do you enjoy doing it? I don't know.
I do, yeah. It sounds really weird. I did a show. I probably shouldn't admit this on a podcast, because a load of industry will download it and go, "Oh, he had a shit show." But I don't care. Everyone has a shit show. About a week ago, I had a show. I had about 15, 20 people in my room, which is about under half, right? And it's one of the lower audiences, and they hated me. Right. They just were not going for it. They didn't connect with me in any way. My show's all about the thoughts you have in your head, and like the conversations you have with yourself, and trying not to overthink stuff. Yeah. And they were all very emotionally stable, and and they just didn't go with it, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I even stopped for a sec. I said, "Could you flick that light on?" And I said, "Seriously, if you're all fine with life, and you're not struggling with inner demons and people talking, little voices saying stuff with you, this is not going to work." And they all looked at me and just went, "We're all right. Yeah, we're fine."
Did you have a lot of Americans in?
No, it wasn't. No, why are they all right?
No, they just generally don't understand. I don't know. They just wouldn't understand that. I don't think. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Well, basically what I did was I sat down with them and we just chatted, and I did sort of emceeing work from the floor, as it were. Okay. And after about 10 minutes I went, "This is the show, by the way. This is what I do every day." And they fucking loved it. They just went with it. And after that point, they really were with me. But I couldn't go back to material, because by that point, it was not, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's that kind of thing where I really enjoyed doing a show to people that hated me, because I'd done a run of half filled, full rooms of people that were really enjoying what I was doing. And it felt a little bit like, I did about 30 previews in London, right? Yeah. And by the end of it, all the improvisation bits that I had, written in, like this bit improvise, this bit improvise. It wasn't improvising anymore, because you run out of improvisation. Yeah, so it was getting boring for me. So to do a room of people that really didn't fucking like me, yes, I got like 20 quid in the bucket, and that is not enough. Yeah. But I had the best day I'd had in a while. And
that's interesting, isn't it? When you get so, you get so slick and you get used to it. I remember having a conversation with Dara O'Brien about when he was a couple of years ago. He came up and did he sold out everything. He was fantastic, and Dara more than anything else, he's just such a fucking brilliant stand-up comedian. But he said to me, "Oh yeah, God, I've been doing this every night. And you were up here the last week." I said, "I've been doing it every night," and he said, "Sometimes I'm just saying it, and I'm not even focusing. It's just coming out, and I'm thinking about a shopping list or something like that, and just going, fuck, that's mind-blowing that you can do that, because it's just so slick, and it just falls out of his mouth." And he said the best heckle he ever had was someone said, "You've done that bit already," and then he just immediately was back in the room and thought, fuck, have I already said that? I don't know whether I've said that or not. And had to rewind, and he hadn't said it already, so. But that from someone who doesn't do that, the concept that you can do that for an hour and not even be concentrating on what you're doing, it's extraordinary. Yeah, I'm going to have to edit this bit out, but I'll tell you what I do, because you're not going to be able to come and see it, I don't think. But I do this joke in the show about how I'm disconnected, and sometimes I'm up on stage and I'm looking at someone and I'm like, "I've been staring at you way too long." Yeah. Like, I'm just staring at you, and I say "I'm just staring at you," and they laugh at that, and then I change person. I'm like, "That wasn't a casual change." Like they know what you're thinking. They know they're going to find you out. They're going to get you. You know what I mean? And I do this whole thing, and then I compare it to how Martin Luther King must have felt when he went up on stage, and how he must have never got into his own head, and all this kind of stuff. And it's obviously a fanciful, ridiculous, joke, but it's one of my favourites to do, because I from the podcast I have comics that come down and see it, and every time they come up to me and go afterwards, and they went, "Yeah, that one." Every day after you've done it 20 times up in Edinburgh, I'm just in my own head going,
I really hope they're going to find this funny as they did yesterday, because if they don't, you know what I mean? And I love it because the comedy nerds are sitting there going, oh, that's how I feel when I'm doing like a presentation at work.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've rehearsed it over and over again, and I don't know, it's making a moment that's a struggle for me.
I went to see what's her name, Zoe Coombs, Zoe-Coombs, somebody or other the other day, and she basically plays a shit male stand-up, and who basically breaks down on stage. So she's Mason Sisters look after her from PBJ. They said you should go and see it. It's really dark. You'll really enjoy it, and it's really fucking dark. And you start out and you think, oh fucking, well, this is a bit shit, and then you realise, oh, it's supposed to be a bit shit, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and it's really, really dark. But I'm going to spoil it for everybody now. But there's a bit in it where halfway through she says, "Oh yeah, and I like you. And when I sing my song right at the end, I'm going to look right at you. You don't leave my gaze during the whole song at the end." And annoyingly, it was me she chose to do that. So she sang a Rihanna song, or mouthed to a Rihanna song, and looked at me all the way through it. God, it was excruciating. Excruciating.
But everyone else found it funny.
Yeah, and everybody was terrified of it. Yeah, because it's a very weird. You should go and see it. It's a really interesting show, and all the comics should see it as well, because it's really clever. It's really clever. It satirises the whole point of being a comic. It's really clever.
You mentioned Ross Noble's show.
Yeah.
I mean, would you? Because I'm just going to ask this question. Actually, forget I asked that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to put an idea in your head. I want to know your actual answer.
Okay.
Which show out of all the shows you put together, or other shows you've commissioned, have been like the sleeper hit? You know, the one that you weren't sure of, and for some reason it was just that's the one that's really done well.
I suppose Gorman, in a way. Even though I love Dave, and I've always been a fan of Dave, and I've been a friend of his for a long time, it's just starting to rain. I never really expected the audiences to be that huge for Dave's stuff, which sounds awful, but I didn't. You know, I think he has a quite a niche tone of voice, and. But I'm so delighted. It's like his audience is so loyal. It's extraordinary. But I think that's because he works so fucking hard. He works so hard. You know, he writes 6 and 8. He did 8 in the last series. So he writes 8 hours of brand new material every series, and he does it all himself. And he PowerPoints everything. He basically produces the whole show himself. And by the end of it, he's absolutely fucking wiped out. He's just about to have a baby and go on tour now. He's just done 8 hours of telly, and now he's just about to. So he's relentless, but he works so hard, Dave, and I admire him so much. You know, when his show goes out of an evening, he stays up till 2-3 in the morning answering tweets. You know, and it's, he works fucking hard. That's the thing. If you work really hard, then you get rewards, and that's and no, absolutely. But he's absolutely brilliant. I admire him so much, but it seems an odd thing to say, but I didn't realise it was going to be such a phenomenon. I knew it would do well, but I didn't realise it was going to be such a phenomenon, and just at such an extent where we've now commissioned 5 series of it, which pretty much unheard of on Dave, to get 5 series of something. 2 series maybe, but 5 is unheard of.
It's pretty unheard of anywhere, isn't it? I mean, like...
Yeah, and I'm almost putting myself out of a job in a way, finding new stuff, because there's too much stuff coming back. Like, so Alan Davis has come back for a 3rd series.
Or coming up next year?
Yeah. That's all in the can now. We're doing a Christmas special in a few weeks. And that just seems to roll on, and I love that show as well. That's such a joy, because really it's just some comics coming around and having a chat, and it's such good fun, and he is brilliant at that. He's just really good at sort of tickling conversations and keeping them going. And actually, that show, people, why comics like doing it is because they don't have to do any prep. So they just, all we ask them to do is come with one story that we'll use to intro them, and then sometimes you don't even get to that story. It just rambles around somewhere, and then you get different generations of comics meeting each other, and they've got shared experience, and then they go away and they become friends off the back of it. It's just really, really good fun. And when we did the run-throughs of it, I knew it was going to work, because you couldn't stop yourself wanting to join in. And so before we did them, we have to tell the audience that you can't join in, you can't talk, because people were trying to get into the conversation. So I love doing that show. It's really good fun. I really enjoy it. And I think for me, it's the best panel show that there is on telly. Even though it's not a panel show, it's a panel show by stealth. Because they sort of said the chat, because I always thought Dave would want more panel shows, but they don't, because they play all the best ones.
Yeah.
So anything we make runs the risk of looking a bit pony compared to If I Got News For You and QI. So that's sort of why As Yet Untitled is what it is, because it was I managed to get it under the wire, pretending that it was a chat show, but it's actually a panel show.
Smooth.
Yeah.
See, this is interesting for me then, because you said, okay, so it's all about risk aversion, it's all about avoiding and having a business plan for a show. Yeah. However, you syndicate a lot of programs like from BBC or whatever, which have already been seen by a lot of people. So does that not ever come into play where you think, well, if 2 million people have seen it on BBC, they're not going to want to watch it again? Or is it a case of the familiarity and the should we say, ease of viewing? Like when people get home after a long, hard day, they just want something consistent. Is that why it works?
I think that's why, yeah. I mean, because you know what you're going to get from QI and I've Got News For You. You know it's consistently good. And, we've built our audiences off the back of that, basically. That's our core. And that's the job, is to keep that audience, not alienate our audience, and expand it. So that's why... if you look at the Alan Davis show, the Ross Noble show, the Dave Gorman show, they've got their names on the front of the thing, because people, like you say, they'll go to them. They still go to to 1s through to 4 first of all, and if there's fuck all on, which generally there isn't these days, Dave might be one of their next stops. And if Have I Got News For You, QI aren't on, but they've got an original programme that we've made, but with talent of a similar ilk, of a similar status, then they'll go with it. And that's a sort of not an official strategy, but that's when I sat down and started thinking about how we're going to move this channel on. It's a very slow process. It's turning an oil tank. Because that's what Dave was just basically a repeats channel. That's all it was. And the whole I first started this whole system of getting stuff delivered and PR'd and all that kind of stuff was still from repeats. So we're changing to, because essentially I think the people who own the company realise you can't. It's not a long-term strategy of just building a channel on repeats. Yeah. So I don't know what I was saying. I'm rambling again. But it's. I think that we have an opportunity in the next 3 or 4 years to really make some big gambles and make some newer stuff, which we shouldn't be so worried about people not watching it. Doesn't that sound strange? But I don't think it's. You see, that's what my theory about the BBC. People are just obsessed with. BBC shouldn't be chasing viewing figures. There should be a Reithian. They shouldn't have to worry about it so much. And I think the McTaggart lecture that was on this week in the TV festival, where they're trying to defend the BBC. I just think it's extraordinary why anybody would want to take the BBC away. You go around the world and everybody's jealous of it. I mean, I've got relatives who live in Italy, and they watch BBC. They've got they get satellite dishes so they can see it, because it's the best stuff. If we lose public service television, it's just horrific. That and the NHS. I sound like I don't know, a ranting 80s comedian now.
Well, I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, it's interesting that that they. So I mean, because basically you all have on-demand players now, and you all have your own online presence. So I suppose taking risks, as long as the budget is there, is lower if you wanted to put it online first and then move it onto TV, because TV obviously is much more expensive. I think
there's been discussions about that, about getting stuff which is just, and I think Actually, this next series of Dave Gulman, the first episode is going to preview on demand. So
Cool.
UKTV Play is what it's called now. So there used to be a Dave player, and now all of it goes through UKTV Play. So there's definitely an opportunity there, and I think we will certainly in the next couple of years, if not this year, start commissioning just for UKTV Play, just for online. So and we're looking into the idea of doing shorts and stuff on there. So that's definitely a possibility. And then also we do lots of podcasts as well. So the Dave podcasts do really, really. Alex Horn's one's fantastic, it's really, really well. And then As Yet Untitled is released as a podcast as well. Bits that don't make it into the show. So we're trying it all the time, but all of it's got to be monetized. So essentially, it's there are opportunities there, I think, potentially for doing shorts. So that might be another way of getting new acts and new talent onto the channels.
How do you monetize your podcasts out of interest?
Well, they don't at the moment. I mean, there's talk of them going through another carrier. I don't know, but at the moment they don't. They're just basically PR vehicles. So I think they'll find a way. I think it's hard podcasts. I used to do a football podcast, and it's hard getting money to sponsor podcasts. You're doing really well to get some sponsorship, I tell you.
Well, the thing is, I at very early stages of this podcast, I got featured over iTunes, and they pushed me forward, and they said, new and noteworthy, and and I hit like the charts in it and everything like that, and I thought, this is going to be amazing, and then a week later I was out of it, and do you know what I mean? And you sort of thought, maybe not. But after that, I got approached by 3 ad networks. Right. Who all offered me around £5 for every 1,000 downloads, right? Which means I'm constantly chasing audience. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Like the same way you said where the BBC shouldn't be chasing audience. I didn't want to just spend my life trying to get people to download it and then send them a report and then them say, okay, cool, you have 3,000 downloads, we'll send you 15 quid. I thought I'd much rather have a core audience of 500 people who love it, who will all give me £1 or whatever per episode for what I do, that will pay me more. It will hopefully cover expenses and costs and whatever, but it will do that thing. And I think for my end of it, like my book's actually about this, and it's called How to Make a Living by Working for Free, and it's all about sharing free content and then saying to people, look, if you like what I'm doing, I need to eat to do this more. And it's down the road. And so I started a Patreon account, and I think because I started it from the start, it's kind of intrinsical and linked to the podcast, so people know that I'm doing something that at the moment I don't think anyone else is doing. I can't find anyone else who's interviewing like people in an industry like this, and as a result, if they want the content still, it's the equipment costs me money, the time costs me money, the at the moment I should be flying, so it's sort of I'm taking a hit on my show for stuff like this. So it's
I'll help you out, it'll be fine.
Oh, thanks. Just say
I think I might drive people away rather than bring them in.
Just say I'm very funny on this, and then I'll use it as a quote. But it's but it's one of those things, and I think when you talk to people like an adult, and you say to people, especially in the industry who want to make this their own, you say, look, we're adults in this. You know how much time and effort goes into stuff. You know how much time and effort goes into a podcast. If you like it and respect it, let's do it. And that's why I think the future for this, for content creators online in particular, and I think if Dave went further into like online content, it would make sense to do the herring method of maybe crowdfunding a show, so you'd know how many people are going to watch it, or having a subscription-based model where it's tipping, not subscription. Because having a paywall, it's a massive difference. Because having a paywall, you block out getting new audience members who maybe will go, oh, okay, I like that, I'll pay £1, but I'll pay it once. And that helps towards the bottom line. And it's not consistent, but then again, it's not consistent anyway with the ad revenue. So Stuart Goldsmith does a similar thing, but he just invites people to give him some money wherever. And he actually told a story on Davis where somebody, he was in a urinal and somebody put some money in his back pocket, and that's fucking weird. You're asking people to do that now, prostituting yourself literally. I remember I did a podcast. I had another podcast I was going to launch that I never got around to doing, that I had him on for, and afterwards I was talking to him about my book, and I said, you need to start a Patreon account, it'll really help you out. And the reason I wanted him on it was because I thought his would trailblaze it for mine. Do you know what I mean? I thought if he got on it, enough people would know about it, because he has a much bigger audience. The thing is, it's sort of backfired, because most of his audience like to give him a PayPal donation instead of being on Patreon where they pay him a monthly thing. Mine at the moment is the other way around. I've got sort of 14 patrons, but I get very few donations through PayPal.
Okay.
So it sort of worked, but it hasn't. And it's sort of like you said, where you know, if you've got a TV show, you try and push the same audience go across. That was my thought thinking through with it, but
good theory.
Well, I spend a lot of time thinking, and I'm always very business orientated. The reverse of that question then, were there any shows that you thought would just go really well or just failed and you've learnt something from it and you just think it could impart some knowledge from someone who wants to...
As I said, the David Hasselhoff thing was very disappointing. When we got the overnights from that, I was very disappointed, but because I think it's a really good show and an incredibly brave show. And I think we slightly underestimated... because we got so carried away about how brilliant it was and how funny it was. We underestimated that people wouldn't necessarily realise it was a comedy show because it was David Hasselhoff, and we didn't in the advertising. We simply just didn't say it's a comedy show, which it's a comedy show about him taking the piss about the fact that he's a bit shit, which is a really clever joke and incredibly bold and incredibly risky thing for him to do. You know, a 60-odd-year-old American TV star comes over to the UK and makes a comedy show about himself being a bit shit. It's extraordinary idea. But actually, lots of people didn't come to it because they thought it was a reality show, and it's not a reality show. It's a really funny show. It's a really funny, weird show, and I think sometimes you could just get, and I hope it's the marketing. I hope it was the marketing that was wrong, because we're going to market it certainly different this time. I've got the scripts in my bag for the second series, I was doing a charity cycle ride at the time, so I was cycling to Paris, and when the overnights came through, I went, oh fuck. You know what? Maybe they've put the decimal point in the wrong place. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it built a bit, and I think I'm still very proud of it. And I think for us, it's not just about. I keep saying it, and maybe I'll convince myself. It's not just about viewing figures. It's also about the status and the perceptions of the channel. So actually, the fact we did something so brave like that and so big like that, actually people noticed, and that there might not enough of them watched it, but a lot of people noticed. So that you can't underestimate how important that is. I think, and so that I've learned quite a lot of lessons through that. I think we all have, and. But you can't. We are at a point now where we've got to take some more risks as a channel to go to the next level. And if more risks you take, the more chances you are of making mistakes. And you shouldn't be frightened of making mistakes. I think that's how you get things right, by making mistakes in the first time. So yeah, that probably was disappointing, and probably the figures for the second series of Ross Noble was a bit disappointing, because I loved that show so much. But sometimes people just don't find it, and it can be sometimes people just don't find shows, and I don't really know why. It's not sometimes it's not because of the quality. It's just shit happens, and it's a shame. But I still passionately believe in Ross and the shows. I think they're fantastic. He's an extraordinary talent. Absolutely amazing man. I want to do more work with him. So they would be my two biggest disappointments. But I'm sure I've got some more coming.
Yeah. Well, everyone's got a disappointment left in them, haven't they?
Yeah. My life's littered with disappointments. Trust me. I was telling you about my last year. Yeah. My God.
Look out from 2016 in Edinburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was just saying that I would do. I should do a Edinburgh show about my life the last year, which has been quite colourful.
Yeah. I think that's the comedian mind, because you used to do comedy. Yeah. And I suppose it's just kicking in again. Yeah. Maybe you've got that urge to go back to the live circuit.
I think it's desperation. That's what it is. As I said to you, it was never really a stand-up because I didn't love myself or hate myself enough, and I think maybe I hate myself enough now to try and do it again, but I don't know. No, so I love what I do. I think it's really good fun, and it's really frustrating and really depressing sometimes, and but it's, you know, it feels like a really good place to be, apart from all the glass crashing in the background. So it's a, you know, telly's fun, you know, and I've got kids, you know, I've got a 17-year-old, and you know, thinking about what job we should do and stuff. And as I said to you before, that I was in the slight fear that telly was going to just die and wither on the vine, but I don't think it ever will, you know. And people will always need content, so however that content is delivered, it's sort of irrelevant. I don't really have any control over that, but I can certainly have control over the type of content, and, you know, encouraging new content and stuff, and funny stuff, you know. I like it when people laugh at my shows.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot. Yeah.
Laugh more, guys.
Yeah.
When you say, just to pick you up on one little syntax of what you said, when you say disappointing, like on your rate of return form, like what numbers are you looking for? I mean, obviously it'll change by the time of the day and like what's happening in terms of other channels.
I think if any show gets over 400,000, everybody's happy. You know, Dave Gorman, I think the last series, the first act, got 700,000. Many hats were thrown in the air. I think Storage Hunters UK, when we made the first one of Storage Hunters, I think they got like over 1 million, which is just extraordinary. But, you know, I think I know that some shows are never going to get more than 400,000, but we still doesn't mean to say we shouldn't still be making them. So I think about 400,000, 500,000, anything with a 5, then you know, I'll get a raise. But I think in a multi-channel world, that's pretty good. You know, it's pretty good. I mean, we're getting figures that Channel 4 would bite your hand off for. You know, when I first started working in telly, I remember I worked on a Jonathan Ross show called Saturday Zoo, which was one of the first things that Coogan did, and a whole load of other brilliant comics. And I remember that got cancelled because it only got 2 million viewers for a live comedy show. And you think, fucking hell, how far have we come now? You know that if a live comedy show got 1 million viewers, people would you know, throw their hats in the air and be carrying it shoulder high down the street. So, you know, it's all about perceptions, and it's all about risk aversion, as I keep going back to. So, you know, and the landscape just keeps on changing. But people will always need content. It's good news.
But is that down to like the number of channels expanding, or the attention span of people getting, you know, pushed around on the internet? Meaning that, for example, when there wasn't internet, 2 million was a really, you know, low number. Yeah. But now, because, you know, for example, I don't really watch so much TV. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I watch it when I'm back at my parents' house because they have TV, and I'm on the internet sometimes. But it feels rude to be watching YouTube while they're watching TV. Yeah. I don't know why, because we're not talking anyway. But yeah, so I mean, do you think that's had an impact on it, or do you think it's just, you know, there's just so much more niche content now that people can really pick and choose what they're going to watch, and therefore
I think all of that. I mean, there's so many different places to go. I mean, I sit and watch telly with my kids. All three of them are on some form of device while they're watching the telly, and, you know, my daughter will disappear off into her room and watch YouTube videos for hours on her iPhone. My kids got iPhones. Look at me. And you know, there are so many channels now. I mean, it's like some channels, you know, we've got 10 channels, some of which, you know, barely register some days, you know, but they still make money. But there are some channels that are so far down the EPG, I just don't know how they can make any money. I really don't. I don't know how. I just don't. I mean, because advertising revenues, you know, on a smaller specialist channel late at night, there'll be nothing. They'll get nothing. They'll just play adverts just for the sake of it, just to fill up time. So you know, there is you know, a massive amount of choice, and a massive amount of choice online, and you know, and people, you know, I know people who just never watch telly. I know a couple of people who haven't even got a telly. So heathens. But you know, there still is a desire. And there still is, you know, when I was a kid, when there were only like three, when I was at school and there were only 3 channels, there was a moment when, you know, something like, I think Abigail's Party was an example, right? So Abigail's Party was like a comedy play for today, I think, at one time, and there was something on the other side which wasn't very good, and then Abigail's Party got something like 12 million viewers. I don't know, I was just making numbers up, but it got a massive amount of viewers, and then the next day everybody came into school and we're talking about it and we're doing impressions of Abigail's Party. I think that's a shame. We have less of that shared experience, but Saturday Night Telly still sort of does that a little bit. It's a shame it has to be singing competitions that do it, but occasionally stuff does really fly, and everybody, it becomes a shared experience. I suppose the Office did for a while, didn't it? And those Office Christmas specials, I remember that, everybody watching those, and that's great when comedy can do that.
For me, I think it's again. This is just a theory from my day job, but I think everyone's become so disconnected because of the technology they have around them that they want that shared experience. So they are in my industry we call it second screening.
Yeah.
They are tweeting while they're watching the program, and they're not even really enjoying. And this is the thing that annoys me about TV when they say, "Oh, our TV program trended last night." That's awful because they're not looking at the program. Yeah. They're on their phones.
No, yeah. Well, there is a couple of apps now where you can watch online and tweet at the same time, and I don't really see the point of it. You might as well just get your phone out. But I think it's interesting, but I think that's about everything's like that, though, isn't it? Because we are constantly looking at moving images, and constantly our attention span now is so. If you watch for example, if you watch a Bond film from the 1980s and you watch a Bond film now, it's so fucking slow. It's so unbelievably slow. All like Hollywood movies now are just so, from the 80s and 90s are so slow, because we just want bam, 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 bam. Otherwise we'll go to our phone, or we'll go somewhere else, or we'll, everybody, like it's like my 17-year-old boy's got hunched because he's constantly looking at his. Well, I think our physiology will change because we're all so fucking hunched over our phones the whole time. But that's just change, isn't it? Didn't people used to say it was going to, when the wireless came in, it was going to be the ruination of the world? It's just the latest thing, isn't it?
Yeah. The times they are a changing.
They are indeed, yeah, and you just got to go with it. As I said, people will always need content. You've just got more places to put your content now.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
And in terms of, because obviously we've talked a lot about how to get a program, if you have a program idea on TV, but like you said, you want new talent on the telly.
Yeah.
And like we said, that there are a lot of agents who they just go straight to, they go, oh, for example, Avalon, they own a production agency, they'll make. Yeah. I mean, do they make much of the TV, or do they just get it from production agencies, really?
Avalon make their own shows.
Oh no, I mean Dave in general. Do they make any TV? Actually, do they have a production thing, or do they?
We don't have a production arm. There was talk of us putting together a production arm at one stage, but no, we don't have a production arm. But I think that's. So it would be a sort of. I always thought about that with the BBC in-house production and ITV in-house production as well, to a certain extent. And I think Channel 5 have now got an in-house production. It's a strange conflict of interest, I think. Because even though they say, ITV would always say they don't, or BBC would say they don't, they will always favour their in-house production a little bit more, which doesn't necessarily. It means they're not as good often. I think. BBC in-house. I think they're changing the rules of BBC in-house now, so the BBC in-house can make stuff for other people. I think that's a really good thing, because it's. I know people who've been in development in-house in BBC, and it's very frustrating because you've only got one place to go, and that doesn't breed creativity. I don't think. I think we're the only other place that BBC in-house can pitch to, but they have to be turned down by BBC in-house first. And I think maybe they did some stuff before my time for us, but it's a fair play to anybody who gets anything away anywhere, to be honest with you, because it's fucking hard, and I know from 24 years of being freelance how hard it is to get stuff on the telly. It really is difficult, and actually it's getting harder, because, as I said, the more proliferation of channels should make it easier, but actually it's making it more difficult, because people are all chasing the same viewer.
So in terms of, if you're, say there's a comedian listening to, or a performer, or somebody who wants to get on like a panel show, or they want to get involved in TV, maybe they have an agent, maybe they don't. I'm sure an agent gives them. David Quantick said, I really like this quote. He said, "An agent is sometimes like a Rolex watch. Like it's not really that much more useful than a regular watch, but it makes you look better to someone who you're trying to impress."
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's absolutely true. I mean, I always think about agents is that they're largely useless until you are successful. So, and an agent ain't really ever going to break you, really. I mean, and maybe I suppose, the big ones, the Avalons and Off the Curbs can probably help break you and stuff. But at the same time, so I look at McIntyre, for example. Love him or hate him, McIntyre is quite a really interesting example. So McIntyre was around for a long time, and McIntyre was a very average comic for a very long time. And we would get him offered to do pilots and stuff like that, just to have a face on there, and you go, oh right, well, get him, he's all right. And then suddenly, something switched with Michael, and he just started working really fucking hard, and that's why he's massively successful. He works really hard. You might not like what he does or whatever, but he works really hard and knows and crafted what he was doing. People like him or they don't like him, but he really knows his audience, and that's why he's massively successful. But I do think with agents, they're very useful to you once you've got a bit of traction, but you can only really get traction yourself, I think.
Once you've got a product to sell, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got to sell yourself and start making some noise yourself, whichever way you do. I don't know how you do. There's no. If there was one specific way of doing it, we'd all be massively successful, wouldn't we? I mean, I don't know. People say, how do you get into telly? How do you get ideas or anything? And just look. Often is the case, or who it's nepotism, it's anything, and there isn't one way of doing anything. But I think if you just persevere and you're good, then eventually something will give. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. There were so many brilliant. When I was starting out in telly and getting into comedy and stuff, there were so many brilliant stand-ups out there, like really, really top of their game. Not all of them made it. Not all of them got on the telly, and wasn't because they weren't good. It was they just got lucky. Something happened, and they got lucky, and they got. A couple of them got massively famous, and a couple of others didn't, but they're still brilliant comics, and they're still doing the circuit, and they're still working hard, and they're still coming up with new material and stuff. But that must be incredibly frustrating when you're watching other comics who aren't as good as you. Yeah. But that's the same with everything. I think that with telly, there are all sorts of useless chances to do well in telly. That's it is the probably only fashion has more wankers who are empty and soulless and than telly. It's pretty. It's Emperor's New Clothes. It's all about confidence. And I remember when I started out as a runner, thinking working with these people who my first job in telly was working with Jonathan Ross, and all the exec producers around and all the producers, and thinking that fucking hell, these amazing people, they know what they're doing and it's brilliant. I'm in awe of them. And then gradually you realised, actually. They're frightened of getting found out as well, so they don't know either. So, and then gradually a penny drops. You think, well, actually, my voice is as valid as anybody else's, and actually, I'm a bit brighter than them, or I'm a bit funnier than them. So why shouldn't my voice be heard? And so, and just like as a massive penny dropped, and so telly's full of people waiting to be found out. It's quite useful ammunition, that I think, because often. I talked to Dave Gorman about that sort of thing about telly, and about how it sometimes ruins comics, because you get in a room of 15 execs who then try and make a show by committee, and they water down what you are as a performer, and actually they ruin it. And then someone like Dave Gorman, who's been doing stand-up and doing his show for fucking 25 years or whatever, he's been doing it now, he knows what's funny. Because he does it all the time. He knows what he's doing. So why would I impose on him what he should be doing? He knows what he's doing. That's why I think we have such a great relationship with talent. And when people work with us, they enjoy working with us because I respect what they're doing, because they're fucking brilliant at what they're doing, and they know their audience more than I do. So I think that about stand-ups. Just if anybody knows what the show that they should be making, they do, because they know their audience, and that's why we end up. But you're talking about Alan Davis, you're talking about Ross Noble and folk who have been doing it years, and they're fucking brilliant. They're really good at what they do. So
So if you were a comedian who wanted to get on a show, I mean, is it the case of just getting them to, like, sending you a video, getting in front of you, getting you down to a gig, or I mean, because obviously, I mean, I assume you don't really get. I mean, well, you do. You write and produce and script, as well as commission shows. Yeah. So I suppose you also have a say in who goes on a panel show, or who, like you said in the Alan Davis show, like gets that extra. I don't want to call it an open spot, but it's, you know what I mean, like a
the fourth chair. We generally have a chair for. I mean, the desire is to have a chair for a younger comic and a chair for an A another. We don't always manage to get an A another. The A another can be an author or a presenter or somebody unusual, or sometimes I've had a couple of actresses on there who aren't necessarily massively famous, but I know are fucking hilarious. So I've just gone. You've just get her on. Honestly, she'd be brilliant, and and they were fantastic. So I guess the best way is just to send me some stuff of you being funny. That's it's the shiny beads of moving images again. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, I don't have ultimate say on stuff. It will be the production companies as well as what they want, and they, sometimes it's depressing, but sometimes if they deal with the big agents, then the agents will deal them. So if you're going to get Jimmy Carr, you have to take this other person, or be careful what I say here. Or if you want Jack D, then you've got to take somebody else. So that often those deals do take place, which is quite depressing. But there's tons of comics I really love, and they just don't get on telly enough, and that's what's brilliant about. And so there's other people that wouldn't necessarily do panel shows, wouldn't do them because they don't like them. They don't like the gladiatorial environment of them. But actually, that's what's great about the Iain Davis thing, because it's actually it's casual. It's not gladiatorial. People don't shout over each other, and they've got time, and so it's a lovely environment. It's nice, and I love that show. It's just really lovely to be involved in and to go down there and watch it. It's just really good fun to watch.
Yeah. Who are your favourite comics? You got like
my favourite comics?
Top 5?
Fucking hell. Well, it's you see, you get me in trouble now. If I don't mention some of my friends, it'll be awful. Les Dawson, Louis C.K. Obviously, we just had a conversation about Louis C.K. I just love Louis. That's such an incredible show. I would never be allowed to commission that. It's too dark and doesn't follow any rules. And try and pitch that. It's just extraordinary. God, who are... I mean, there's people like, Lee Mack's a really good friend of mine, and I think he's just fantastic. I think he's amazing. Again, worked really, really, really hard. I think Not Going Out as a sitcom is consistently brilliant, and the gag per minute on that show is, I think, better than any other British sitcom that's been that has been made in the last 20 years. I really do. I think it's fantastic, phenomenal. Who else? Obviously, all the people I work with, Ross and Alan.
It's turning into an acceptance speech.
Yeah,
but
it's difficult to separate for me for comics I like and actually the people I like, because I know them. I like them more, as people. I love Stephen K. Amos. He's a really good friend of mine. But it's partly because I know him, and he's such a lovely bloke, it's. Even when Stephen has a bad gig, it's still a brilliant gig because he's so warm, and it's an incredible gift. He should be doing the if he was 20 years ago, he'd be doing Generation Games, Stephen, because he's fantastic with punters and people.
Maybe a better question for you is, because that's the question I normally ask. I've normally got reviewers, that kind of stuff. So maybe a better question for you is, what are like your favourite TV shows? Maybe 3 you've worked on, and 3 you haven't worked on that you wish you had.
Right, things I've worked on. I worked on Shooting Stars when it first started. Loved it.
Amazing
Jim and Bob are just fucking phenomenal. Bob Mortimer, being in company of Bob Mortimer, he's funny on the telly, but when you're with him, he's the funniest. He's just the funniest man. He's just so funny. He's got a darkness and a twinkle with him. He feels so dangerous to be with. You feel like a child with him. He's amazing. So that was an amazing experience, being taken the piss out of by those two for the 3 or 4 series was extraordinary. Again, I worked on Big Mouth with Russell Brand, which I really enjoyed. It was a great experience, because what was brilliant about that show is that no one watched it when we started, so no one gave a shit. So we just did whatever we wanted to do, and it found an audience and got really big and became a phenomenon. You know, it was extraordinary. So I really enjoyed working on that show. And then I think you know, the stuff I'm doing now. I mean, I love, as I said, I love As Yet Untitled. I love Gorman. The shows I'm working on at Dave at the moment, I'm really pleased with. I'm really happy with it. Stuff I wish I'd made. Did you ever see Monkey Dust? That animation thing on the animation when BBC Three first started, and it was doing some really interesting, edgy thing. It's animation. Look it up. It's fucking brilliant. Again, incredibly dark. Louis, I wish I'd made. It's unlikely that I would get the opportunity to make that. And then just classics, Steptoe and Son. You know, just love Steptoe and Son. Laurel and Hardy, love Laurel and Hardy. Oh, old school in that way. Starting to rain. Shit.
Again,
the sky crying.
I have one because you didn't make the show.
Yeah.
I have one last question. Then I'll quickly do that and then ask, because what I normally do, I ask one last question and then ask for your advice on something, and then we end it on that.
Nice.
So last question, which is an actual question. You, Dave. I'm going to say you, but Dave sponsors the Leicester Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
Is that like sort of an incubator then for you for like new talent? Do you go there and scout for stuff, or is that just literally a sponsorship deal?
It used to be just literally a sponsorship deal, but I make a point of going down there now. I actually didn't do it this year, but I have the last 2 years before that. I think it's really important. We should try and put something back. I sound like a weird social worker, but I think it's really important. I mean, it hopefully will become that. I hope it will be. I think, and actually, I'd like us to do something similar in Edinburgh. We should be doing. I think we should be doing So You Think You're Funny or something like that. I think it's important for us to get to. It's about relationships. It's about once you start relationships with talent and agents and stuff, it all helps. And I want to. I've got a job here, but also I want the comedy industry to do well. It's important to me. It's important to me. Like I was having a conversation the other day, I'm so depressed about Channel 4, about what Channel 4 has become. That it's not doing comedy entertainment shows anymore. I think it's really important as a producer and somebody who's worked in comedy that we have a strong Channel 4 and in that regard, and it's not, and it's really frustrating. So. The Leicester Comedy Festival is something where we put back into, we do quite a lot. I mean, we do the Joke of the Year thing up here and stuff, which and we do the obviously Dave party, which you should, if you called me earlier, I would have let you in. Would have got you in there.
I tried. Oh, sorry, it was a long
did you try?
My friend Anita and Jeff Whiting.
Okay.
They went to it and they said, "Oh, come on down, we'll get you in." And we got to the door and they went, "Sorry, you're not on the list."
Well,
and I was like,
"Called me. I would have got you in." Bit
late
now. Next year.
Next year. I'll give you an email.
So yes, it is. It hasn't been in the past at the Nursery Slope, but I'd like to hope that it will become so.
Okay, and because like you said, you already do like the award here, like with the Joke of the Fringe and stuff. I mean, is there any chance to expand on that? I mean, have you got plans on that, or?
Not at the moment, but they're always looking at stuff to make PR. I mean, like I said, the PR department and the marketing department is fucking enormous. There seems to be hiring another 10 every day as well. So there's just ways of getting, and like you said before, about that brand, and it's about getting the brand out there, and any ways they can do that, it's good. I mean, there is a perception within the comedy world, hopefully, that Dave support comedy. I think there is, and we do, and we'll continue to do that sort of thing. I think, I'd like us to expand that and do some more stuff up here.
Out of interest, why Leicester then? Like, why? Because there's lots of comedy.
I don't know. It was before my time.
Oh, okay.
I genuinely don't know. But I think maybe it's because they can own it, because it's quite small, and although it's getting bigger. I mean, Jeff does done a fucking good job there.
Yeah, I interviewed him a few weeks ago. Yeah, and he convinced me to come down to it. This year,
it's really good fun. It's really good, and because it's quite a small place, it's great. It takes over the whole place, and that's what makes it exciting. It's because it's it feels as though the whole place is alive with comedy. And because it's quite a small, then you can walk. The venues are all very close together and all that. You don't end up having calves of steel like you do in Edinburgh, walking from place to place. So yeah, I don't know why they chose that, but I think it works for them. I think they review it every year as to whether they're going to do it or not. But it's a relationship now. It's been going on for 5 or 6 years, I think. So, and I don't see why it would stop.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as for the joke of the Fringe, I mean, do you know how that even? Because you can't go and see every joke.
Well, somebody told me I every year, like this year and last year, people kept sending me saying, "Oh, you should see this person. He's got this joke. You should put that in there." I have no control over it whatsoever. One of the press girls is in charge of it, and I think they have some sort of committee that go around and see tons and tons and tons of shows. I don't know how many. I think about 10 people. I think go and see. So maybe they do. Maybe they see a lot of stuff, but it's not something you can. Because people have tried, and I've gone, how does this work? People are sending me stuff and saying you should go and see because these people have got brilliant one-liners, and they went, well, that's not how it works. We're not open for people to throw jokes at us. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's not something you can break. That. So,
fair
sorry.
Enough. That's cool. And if you had one bit of advice to give, let's say a performer who is either with or without an agent who wants to get on a TV show. Yeah. It might not be on Dave, just be a general TV show, and maybe a performer. I don't want to say comedian because it could be anyone, but a performer or a writer who has an idea for a TV show they want to get on. What would you say? It could be positive and negative advice.
I would say, make sure it's good. But I mean, I know that's daft, but show it to people and make sure it's the very best of what you can do, because often people they harangue you and they get stuff and you're actually convinced, but there's something they've got here is really special, and then you read it and it's shit, and that's a problem. I mean, that's always going to be a problem because everybody thinks they're brilliant, but show it to some people who you trust, who will be honest with you, and then persevere. I know that sounds crap, but persevere and stalk people and make them, not fucking me, don't stalk me, but and know your audience, know your channel, know your audience. There's no point pitching, a Russian collective farming show to me. I can't, I can't get that through. It's realise what stuff's on that channel and what new stuff they're making, and you'll very soon work out where they're going and what they're aiming at. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard, isn't it? Because what you want is a magic bullet, don't you? And there isn't one, is there? I'm sure everybody says the same thing. There isn't one bit of advice that.
So if there's one thing I've learned in the last year from doing the podcast and from writing the show and from just generally trying to push myself forward in the industry and forward with my own audience, trying to build that is. You need to find your own way of doing it, because if everyone did it the same way, it makes it impossible, and it also makes it boring. And the only way you're going to stand out, like you said, when you guys made that TV show that no one watched, but you put yourself above the precipice, as it were. It was interesting, and interesting is the hardest thing to be, more than anything. And you need to be interesting, and you need to be driven. You
know what? I think it's everybody can sit there and resent other people's success and and get really angry about the fact that some people. Jumped ahead and they got lucky, or and they're not as good as you are, or whatever. But actually, you can sit there and you can eat yourself up about stuff like that, or you can just get off your arse and do it for yourself and sort yourself out. But and like you say, there actually are more opportunities now. Bizarrely, not necessarily in telly, but there is more opportunities to do stuff on digitally and put stuff online than there ever has been before. So. It's if you are good and you push yourself and you can be your own PR machine to a certain extent, then you'll get noticed. I mean, I certainly believe that. I really do. I mean, like you say, I mean, having a big fancy pants agent may help you after that point, but initially it ain't going to help. I don't think. I think there's a lot of people on the books of those big agencies that no one's ever heard of, and because they've only got so much time to push, and only so many staff to push you, and like I say, there's less telly space, there's less time, there's less opportunity. That's why we're doing well. No, but it's true, because there's less places to go.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's doing, I'm not going to mention who they are, but they're doing really well, but like they can't get on telly.
Yeah.
And they think the reason for it is because what they do just doesn't translate to telly.
Yeah.
And no one wants to take a risk on them.
Yeah.
And I even said to them, hey, I've got this person coming on today, do you want to ask any specific questions? And they said, no, it's a channel that, it's like a laddie channel, and they don't really have anything for me, and they probably don't like anything I do, and they probably wouldn't like something I do. And it felt really down, and then I reread it, and I was like, no, they're just self-aware that what they do won't work for you. Yeah. And so I said, I've got Shane Allen coming on in a few weeks from the BBC, and they were like, oh, give me a message when that's happening, because I think it'll work there. Yeah. And it's about being self-aware. I think that's.
But it's like Shane's like me. Shane, again, the stuff that Shane, I'm sure, would like to commission, and then the stuff that Shane commissions. And Shane is a very funny, dark human being, and but he's got to make stereos for BBC One. So that's Frankie Boyle doing stand-up ain't gonna do that on BBC One. I wish it did. I love Frankie Boyle. But I think but it's everything's in your own hands. You can't, you've only got, I'm 47 now. You've got to get on with it, because you'll be dead soon. And then you sit there at 47, and you regret not doing stuff earlier, I think. And no one's going to come up and drag you out of bed and say, right, I think you're really brilliant and funny. Get on the telly. You've just got the only way you're going to get any better, and the only way you're going to be seen is by doing stuff.
Right, well, I think we'll end it there then.
Yeah.
Right,
you want to go and get the flyers out.
Yeah,
mate.
thank you very much.
Cheers.
That was Iain. He's such a lovely guy. I really had so much fun chatting with him and hanging out with him. We actually did this recording in Edinburgh. I think we mentioned that a little bit in the podcast. And I was just very happy they took time out from the TV festival, which he was originally up there for, to spend some time with us and to give us all of the benefit of his knowledge and wisdom. So Iain, if you're listening, why are you listening to your own podcast? That's a bit weird. And second of all, thank you very much for giving us so much of your time so readily. It was really appreciated. If you've enjoyed this, you might want to subscribe, because I've got Shane Allen coming on soon. If you don't know who he is the BBC Comedy Commissioner, and I've also got a bunch of other TV guests, so if you're enjoying this section of the podcast, you might enjoy that. Also, please do join the Facebook group. It's called Ask the Industry, and of course it's on Facebook, obviously. It's the best place for you to get your questions asked for future guests, and also to find out future things that are happening around this project, because this project is not just a podcast. There are live events happening and lots of other things in the pipeline. That's what I'm going to say for now. There are certain ways you can support the podcast. As always, there's one-off donations on PayPal. You can become a Patreon from $1 or 80p an episode, or now you can buy my book. The book is called How to Make a Living by Working for Free. It is a how-to guide for artists to create an audience for their work through free content on the internet. If you are enjoying my free content and you're enjoying this podcast, please buy a copy. It would really mean a lot to me. It would really validate the last 2 years of my life. And also, you get a book out of it that, if you're listening to this podcast and you've enjoyed what we've talked about in this podcast and in other episodes of the podcast, you should almost definitely get something out of it. I'm going to quickly read you the synopsis from the back cover. This book is a how-to guide for artists to create their own online community for their work, and how that community can support the artist to become sustainable in every way. This book takes a critical and in-depth look at the media's perception of free content versus the reality that the general public sees it as. If you're an artist in the modern age who wants a sustainable audience, you're no longer just an artist, you're a community leader. That sounds like something you might enjoy. Please do go and buy it. You can find it at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/how to make a living by working for free. If you can't find it there, you can go to Indiegogo and type in how to make a living by working for free, and you should be able to find it there. But if you can't find it there, you can go to simoncaine.co.uk, and there is a link in the top bar of my website which will take you straight to where you can buy a digital copy for £5 or a paperback copy for £8. If you do that, you're a legend, quite frankly. But if you don't want to buy it and you can't buy it, or you have to wait a few days to buy it, it's not a problem. It's going to be up for the next 3.5, 4 weeks, so you've got plenty of time to buy it for when you want to. But it would be really useful if you bought it as soon as possible, so I don't have anxiety about the fact that nobody has bought it. Yeah, if you can't buy a copy, don't worry about it. Just share this episode with someone new who you think might enjoy it, because they might buy a copy. But also, even if they don't, why not? It's just nice to share stuff, isn't it? So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for buying the book. If you do, I will see you in about a week. Bye.